graduate sons. We welcome you back to this job where you can continue to be the positive force for good in our community. When my invitation was received to come out tonight and participate in this, I jumped at the opportunity. Not only because of my respect for men and women who wear the uniform and defense of our nation, but also for the great responsibility that we all have to raise up this generation to be the leaders of the next generation. Know, all of you, the family of the Job Corps Center, Minac Incorporated, that you have the full faith and trust of Shelby County government and its citizens as you all continue to be a force for good throughout Shelby County. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm pleased to recognize and introduce Major General Augustus L. Collins. General Collins is the Adjutant General of Mississippi and serves as the Commanding General of both the Mississippi Army and Air National Guard. He is responsible for providing the state of Mississippi and the United States of America with a ready force of more than 275 citizen soldiers and airmen, equipped and trained to respond to any contingency, natural or man-made. General Collins began his career in March 1977. He served on active duty in Operation Desert Storm or Desert Shield, as well as commanding the 155th Armored Brigade Combat Team during combat operations in Operation Iraqi Freedom from 2004 to 2006. Collins was promoted to Brigadier General in 2005, making him the first African American to attain the rank of General Officer in history of the Mississippi National Guard. In 2010, he accepted a position with Minac Incorporated, where he served as the Executive Vice President of Strategic Planning. Collins received an Associate's of Arts degree from Northeast Mississippi Junior College, a Bachelor's of Business Administration degree from the University of Mississippi, an MBA from Jackson University, a Master's of Strategic Studies from the U.S. Army War College, and has completed the General and Flag Officer Homeland Security program at Harvard University's John F. Kennedy School of Government. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Major General Augustus Leon Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Harris, to Mayor Luttrell, to Judge Anderson, Mr. Harris, and to our Student Government Association President, Ms. Johnson. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. What an honor it is for me to be on stage today as we celebrate the homecoming of a great soldier who has given many years to our country and who has now decided that he's going to come back home and devote time to work with the young men and women in the Memphis area. You know, as I was on campus today here at the Benjamin Hooks Job Corps Center, it's been about a year since I was here last. But as I had the opportunity to go around to the classrooms and the trade areas, and I looked at the young men and women that we have here who have come here to better themselves, to work on their academics, to find a trade that they'll be able to use, that they'll be able to take out into the workforce, better themselves and provide for themselves, and then later be able to provide for their families. The one thing that I did notice is that the faces have changed. And that's good, because that means that we have graduated other young men and women who have gone on, and they're doing things like going to college, they've joined our military, they found places in the workforce where they found meaningful employment, and that's good. And that's the same type of things that we hope and wish for the young men and women that are here today. To the students here at the Job Corps Center, I just say continue to do what you're doing, because the opportunities that we had this morning to talk with you, to interact with you, it appears that you're all very focused, that you're serious about what you're doing. So don't ever lose that focus and continue to move forward. Today I have the opportunity and great honor of introducing to you that gentleman that I spoke about just a minute ago, Command Sergeant Major retired Marvin Hill. Sergeant Major Hill entered the United States Army in 1978 and gave 34 years of his life to the service of our country. That took him to places like Iraq, Afghanistan, Kosovo, the Sinai. He rose in the rank from private all the way to Command Sergeant Major, which is the highest enlisted rank that you hold in the United States Army. And he held that rank for more than 14 years, the last 14 years of his career. He served as the senior enlisted advisor in places like the International Security Assistance Force in Afghanistan, the United States Central Command at MacDill Air Force Base in Florida. He was a senior enlisted advisor at the multinational force in Iraq, the 1st United States Army at Fort Gillem, Georgia, the 101st Airborne Division, Air Assault at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, Task Force Falcon in the former Republic of Yugoslavia, and also served as a tactical non-commissioned officer at the United States Military Academy in West Point. He holds a bachelor's degree of liberal arts from St. Thomas Aquinas College in Spark Hill, New York. He has a Master of Education degree with honors from North Central University in Prescott Valley, Arizona. He's also a graduate of the United States Army Command Sergeant Major's Academy at Fort Bliss, Texas.
Collins, Mayor Luttrell, Lieutenant General Retired Honore, Major General Collins, Ms. White, members of the board of Mount Ike Incorporated, thanks for being here. Mr. Harris, Ms. Ellington, veterans of our armed forces, friends of the Dr. Benjamin L. Hooks Job Corps Center, fellow co-workers, and members of the staff, and more importantly, to the student employees. Thank you all for being here today. I would like to acknowledge my Army bride for her support in my military career for the last 35 years, and for her support in allowing me to take on yet another challenge at such a late stage in my life. And I also would like to acknowledge Team Hill. If you can allow me a moment to really explain Team Hill. Team Hill. Together, everyone accomplishes more at a high-performing institution of learning and living. Team Hill. That's what Team Hill is. Team Hill is not about promoting Marvin Hill. Team Hill is not about shining a spotlight on me as an individual. Team Hill is about recognizing and taking full advantage of the great opportunities that are available while doing everything within your power to leave the place better than you found it. You know, I've served in the ranks with some truly dedicated and professional people during my 35-year military career. But I can say without a doubt that the staff and faculty here at the Dr. Benjamin L. Hooks Job Corps Center is as committed to the success of our student employees as those of whom I've served with in uniform over the last 35 years. And that's saying a lot. So please join me in acknowledging the commitment of the entire staff at the Dr. Benjamin L. Hooks Job Corps Center. You know, they say that it takes a community to raise a child. Well, it takes an entire staff to graduate a student employee. And I've been honored to have had a front row seat watching them in action over the last 3.5 months. You know, it took a community to get me to this point today. It took supportive and nurturing parents. It took loving and caring siblings. And it took a host of mentors who spent time and energy to teach, coach, counsel, and nurture me throughout my career. And I can't thank them enough for what they've done for me. And before I go any further, I'd like to thank the Color Guard from my high school, Mitchell High School, for their willingness to participate in today's event. I went to the principal, Mr. Kelvin Meek, and I asked him at short notice, could he provide a color guard for this event? Not only did he agree to provide a color guard, that he was insulted that we didn't come to him firsthand. So, Mr. Meeks, thank you so much for the color guard. They look great. You know, today is not about any honor that's owed to Marvin Hill. If anything, I owe a debt of gratitude and honor to you. This day here in Memphis, Tennessee is much like a movie. You know, the happily ever after part. However, this is not the ending to a story. It's rather the beginning to another story. But you know the story. You've heard the story. Young kid from Memphis signs up, guts it through basic training, goes overseas, takes charge, makes sergeant, continues to stay in because he kind of loved being a soldier and he kind of got good at it. And then he teaches a new generation, and then he passes on the torch in a blaze of glory. You know, Hollywood makes this movie over and over. You know, the story of G.I. Joe, Saving Private Ryan, Heartbreak Ridge, We Were Soldiers, you know, you name it. And it's a box office hit every time because you can't miss with a story like that because it's the American story and it's the Marvin Hill story. Now in the movie version, they always run the final credits with the trumpets blaring, the drums pounding, flags waving, and crowds cheering. Well, this afternoon, we don't have the trumpets. There are no drums. We did have flags, and we do have a crowd. However, this is no movie. This has been real every step of the way. A journey that has consisted of 3.5 decades of total duty to the country and commitment to the American soldier. To this day, 35 years removed from my enlistment, I can remember what it was like to be that soldier, that private standing in formation, where everyone outranked me and knew more than I did. That private who was totally dependent upon the sergeant for everything. Guidance, encouragement, instructions, and a plethora of various other important things that only a sergeant could provide. And when I look into the eyes of our student employees, it reminds me what it was like to be that private who did not get a vote on anything. But to our students sitting in the bleachers, you do have a vote. I want you all to know that when the door closes and the center leadership is sitting around the table making decisions that's about your future, you will have a seat at the table. I will represent you by articulating your thoughts, your desires, your concerns, and your needs. You know, a long time ago, when I was struggling in my military career, I received some of the best advice that one could receive. And I'd like to pass that advice on to you all. Someone told me, Hill, just let God be God and enjoy the ride. Let God be God and enjoy the journey. And the journey shaped who I am as a man. The journey instilled a solid philosophy in me that worked 100% of the time. Do what's right, do the best you can, and treat others the way you want to be treated. The journey taught me to be available. It taught me to be accessible. And it taught me to be approachable. And the journey taught me that my priorities as a leader should always be to give energy to those around me and to expand the impact of my leadership. And most importantly, the journey taught me that leadership matters. And it matters the most when things aren't going so well. So as I close the military chapter of my life and begin the new journey, my legacy will remain as it's always been. My legacy is people. For the past 35 years, I've spent my time and my energy on people. And I plan to do the same for the next 35 years. You know, people talk to people. People pass on lessons to people. And people will put their life on the line for other people. So Ms. White, John Honore, John Collins, Mr. Harris, and all in attendance, and especially Team Hill, thank you all for making this day and event special. May God bless you and your families. May God bless our national leadership. May God bless our troopers who are still in harm's way and taking the fight to the enemy. And may God bless the United States of America, for she remains the land of the free because of the brave men and women who serve. Thank you so much. Now it's my honor to introduce our keynote speaker. You know, no one can forget the images of devastation on the Gulf Coast left by Hurricane Katrina in August of 2005. When it seemed that desperation and chaos was taking over the city of New Orleans, one man stepped in to take charge and restore hope and order in New Orleans: General Russell L. Honore. Let's look at him on the scene of disaster and the work of the man who New Orleans Mayor Ray Nagin called one John Wayne Dewey.
This new task force that is being established to deal with Katrina, who will be in charge?
My friend, my colleague, my former boss, General Russell L. Honore.
Well, Sergeant Major, thank you. We had the good pleasure to serve for about 2 years together at First Army, and you might have noticed in the clip that man putting the hat back on the little baby we picked up on the street, on Padre Street in New Orleans, the corner of Padre and Convention Street, with none other than Command Sergeant Major Marvin Hill, the man we honor here today. Sergeant Major Hill is one of those individuals who make you better just by being in his presence. As his commander, and he and I served in First Army training troops for Iraq and Afghanistan together. Troops that he eventually went over to Iraqi command. So he got to take a close look at his good work and stayed in contact with us at First Army in accomplishing our mission. Mayor Luttrell, it's always good to see you. It's great to be back in your great city. Thanks to the people of Memphis for creating the Marvin Hills that we have in our Army and all our armed forces today. And this great individual that this community loaned us 35 years ago, and we welcome him back in Memphis today. Thank you, Memphis. Thank you. To Judge Anderson, chairman of our board, members of the boards, General Collins, and to honoree Sergeant Major Hill. It's really an honor to be here today. Mr. Jones asked me what I was going to talk about. I said, we're going to talk about adapting and overcoming. As these students here today, Marvin, if you will allow me to focus on them for you, to this Team Hill, to tell you that you have an opportunity here today as a member or Job Corps student to be able to live your dream. This opportunity is provided to you under the namesake of the Dr. Benjamin Hook Job Corps Center. And with members of the family, the Hook family that's standing here, would you please stand and be recognized? Thanks for this great name. Of this great man who committed himself to this nation. Having been a World War II veteran, a judge, a community activist, president of the National Association of Colored People, and a senior statesman in this country. We couldn't have picked a better name to honor his name and a better opportunity, for he fought for social justice, an opportunity for everybody to be able to live the American dream as was promised to us by our founding fathers. And it's through his great work and men like him that we recognize this week Dr. King, who was recognized in Washington by our president this past Monday, who provided this opportunity for all Americans to be treated equal, all Americans to have an opportunity, regardless of where you're from, what socioeconomic status you are, to be able to get an education and to be prepared to contribute to this great nation. So thanks to the Hooks family, and thanks to the government of the United States. Yes, Dan and I said it. Thanks to the government of the United States of America. And I'll say it again. Thanks to the United States of America for providing this opportunity for these young Americans to be able to get trained and get educated. That we understand that the most important asset of this nation is not the big banks on Wall Street. It's not the number of people who get degrees from Ivy League universities. It's the people of the United States of America. It's the people from which these children come from. The people who saved this nation in its hour of need. It wasn't the rich kids fighting out with General Washington when he fought for our nation. It was the working class people in this nation who saved this nation. I'll bring up that first slide, Taggart. Just as a reminder, here's General Washington, an outcast by the other generals on the battlefield. The British generals used to laugh at him when he showed up with his troops. Matter of fact, the British generals referred to our forefathers as rebels and terrorists. Ladies and gentlemen, they couldn't read, most of them. They owned nothing. And what did they fight for? They fought for something at the time of this battle, on Christmas in 1776, they fought for a promise that was on a piece of paper called the Declaration of Independence. All the people in our nation at that time that had money, that had something, they wouldn't fight. What they said, let's go along with the king. Let's support the king. But there were people in this country that said, hey, we want our freedom. You see, a lot of the big stuff has been taken care of for you. This thing you spent 235 years working on, this freedom piece. And then over 100 years for this opportunity for women to be able to vote. Problem taken care of. Great big world wars like World War I, World War II, done. Finish with that. Ladies and gentlemen, the challenge laid before these students is a lot cleaner. It's an opportunity for them to come from wherever they come from in the country, get an education, be trained to keep this country the most powerful country in the world, not through military might, but through capacity and capability, and through spreading democracy. See, these students, they won't face world wars if we've gotten this thing right, but they will face competition. We live in a world now that has 7 billion people in it. 3 billion of them wake up every morning and don't have electricity in their homes. 3 billion of the 7 billion. Over 2 billion of them don't have access to telephones in their homes. Ladies and gentlemen, it's our job, these students, their generation, to create those technologies that will allow the rest of the world to take advantage of these great things of freedom and the things that working from a working economy. And that's what these students are going to bring to this nation, to go out and solve some of those problems, that everybody can participate in this global economy. Because you see, if we don't, we're going to be right back where we were in World War I. The have-nots fighting against the haves. And how are we going to solve that? By giving everybody in the world an opportunity to work, to take care of their families, and to live in a safe community. That is what this generation of Americans are faced with. Not world wars, but an opportunity for people to work. And what we're doing here with these students, with the support of the government, and yes, I said the federal government, the old tax-spending federal government, is train these students, the descendants of these people who won our freedom, and give them an opportunity to learn a skill, get an education so they can work. That's the greatness of the Job Corps. How about a round of applause for the Job Corps? Thanks, son. As always, he's always there, right on time. How are we going to take advantage of this? Students, that's up to you. You've been given this chance. You have great leadership here. This corporation does great work. This community does great work taking care of you while you're here. Don't miss this opportunity. Remember, a lot of the big issues that we've faced as a country have been done. They're in the rearview mirror. Your challenge is how we keep America. We can't defeat the rest of the world. You know, we talked about 7 billion people in the world. China has 1.3 billion people. India has close to 1.3 billion, and maybe by the time this speech is over, India will pass China. I don't know. But we're the world's 3rd largest population, and we've got about 310 million people that we know about. 310 million. They've got 1 million more people than we have. That's not a threat. That's an opportunity. How do we take this generation of Americans through innovation, through collaboration, and create the goods and services that can be used for those 7 billion people around the world? So when they wake up in the morning, Sergeant Major, they can turn a light on and a light come on in the house. That they can walk to the faucet and turn it and there's water in the home. Because until we make that happen, ladies and gentlemen, we will not live as a nation or as a global world meeting the potential of what God meant us to be. Is that everybody's got a fair shot, and we will not be free in America until the world is free. Because where there's a place where people are hungry, where children are dying because they can't get the right medication, and people cannot deal with the disease and deal with the elements such as weather and flooding and storms, that will provide an opportunity for people like terrorists, who we've been fighting for the last 10 years, to go in and see notions of discontent. That their problem is because of how well we are doing as a nation. That's why these young people here today, Sergeant Major, this Team Hill that you are training, got to get it right. They've got to get it right. They've got to create the jobs, be a part of the jobs, and be a part of the innovation that will solve some of these global issues. Some of them the President talked about the other day. That's the challenge. Get your skill, get your training, take advantage of this opportunity, this safe haven that you have here to learn in, and to come out of here a leader. Go out into the world and make a difference, and graduate, and live up to this great name of this center that you lead from, Dr. Benjamin Hooks, and be proud of this opportunity that's been given to you. And hopefully, if we get this right, in 20 years there may not be a need for a Job Corps. Right. But right now, this nation needs Job Corps, and we need more Job Corps. And the reason we need it, because one third of the children in America today are being raised in poverty. With all the other gains we've made as a nation, that's a shame. A third of our children are being raised in poverty. That came exposed to me in South Major Hill and the impact of poverty during Hurricane Katrina. When I went back home to Louisiana and he was there at my right side, moving along through the streets of New Orleans, and we saw who did not evacuate. It was not the kids that were going to private school. It was not the kids whose parents owned 2 or 3 homes all over the Gulf. It was not the kids whose parents owned a yacht out on the Gulf. It was not the kids whose parents had private airplanes. The people we picked up in New Orleans came from 3 categories of vulnerable population. They were elderly people, they were people with disability, and they were poor kids. Those kids we picked up on the street, those twins, that's the first time I really got mad when I was walking the streets in New Orleans, South Major Hill and I. When we came up on this young lady, she's 18 years old, unwedded mom, those twin little boys, those beautiful little babies, they were about 9 months old. When we picked them up, they had blood coming out of their nose. They were dehydrated. Because the question to me was, America, and it remains today, where in the hell were those baby dads? Right? We don't need Washington to solve that problem. We need to solve that in our streets, in our community, in our churches, and in our homes. Because those little boys are going to have a hard time. South Major and I helped save them one time, but we cannot let those young boys grow up and end up in the Louisiana prison system. We've got to do something about it. And under our watch, those of us who are going into our second half, Judge, Leon, you still got a few years left out there on the front line. And Marvin, we moved to the other side in our second half. We've got to use our wisdom to figure out how we're going to break this chain of bondage that's in our poor communities, where too many of our young people, minority young men, end up shooting and killing each other and going to prison. Our forefathers fought too hard to provide us this opportunity. And too many generations in between have fought too hard. We got to figure out how we're going to break that. And right here, we can start off with Team Hill. Team Hill, can we fix this? God bless Job Corps. God bless this great city. And Marvin Hill, it's all yours.
Thank you, Senator.
God bless you.
I'm Reuben Anderson, Chairman of the Board of Finance. Our president and owner is not here with us today, B.T. Jones. He has the flu. And I'm glad he's not here spreading it around. I think you are too. I'm to introduce our board members. You've met 2 of our board members, and both of them are great Americans, some of the greatest of Americans, General Honoré and General Collins. Out in the audience is John Douglas from Kansas City, Missouri. John, would you stand? And Attorney Albino Castillo from Jackson, Mississippi. Would you stand? Thank you so much for welcoming the board to be here. Have a great day.
Please, sir.
Well, good afternoon. It's great to be here. Every time I'm with General Collins, I have a travel event. Last time I was with the General, it was for his swearing in Jackson. As on my way to the airport, the car broke down a half a mile from the airport. I pushed it into the ditch, ran as fast as I could, and was on time. And remain standing. Veterans, would you stand, please? Delivered to the Job Corps audience was at the Finch Henry Center. But he challenged us and the students, as he always did. You know, these veterans came out of similar circumstances that our students come from, but they overcame that. And Dr. Hook said to the students, it's your turn now. So students, if you would respond with, it's my turn now, will you please? It's your turn now. Oh, you can do better than that. It's your turn now. Right. These veterans took advantage of every opportunity they had for training, and it's your turn now. It's my turn. They took advantage of finding somebody who could mentor them and encourage them, and it's your turn now. They took advantage of the opportunities they had to forego short-term pleasures for the long-term benefits of a skill and a job. It is your turn now. All right. They stuck to it. They stuck to it. When times were tough and it was a difficult time, and they came through. And it's your turn now. You can stay. You can get that credential. You can get that job that's waiting for you because it is your turn now. Please stand for the benediction.
God of life, you have allowed us to live these moments today together with each other. Help us draw strength from the warmth and pleasantries of each other. Help us become empowered by the lives and service to America by our honorees. As we conclude today's ceremony, we pray thy blessings upon us. With your blessings, we are free to use our energies to benefit ourselves and others. With your blessings, we have our individual measure of strength, ability, and intelligence. With your blessings, we have the collective power to change records and make differences in our community. With your blessings, we live acceptable to you and pleasing to others. Please receive this benediction, dear Lord, in the name of you who art our Father, Creator, Keeper, and Rewarder.